Okay, gonna need to be extra careful with this one. Highschool DxD, an anime I think needs no introduction. I think I speak for everyone here when I say that the anime is pretty notorious for being one of the premier ecchi anime out there. It's famous for all the reasons you can imagine. I'm sure a lot of you stumbled across it during that era in your teenage years where you were discovering anime and just so happened to go through an ecchi phase. Yeah, I think we've all been there. And Highschool DxD was one that stuck with you for how lewd it was. At first. What I came to realize while watching it was that beneath all the fan service, beneath all the perversion, and beneath all the very cliche anime tropes lies a really good shonen series that plays around with a bunch of cool ideas that could rival some of the big shonen out right now. Dare I say, Highschool DxD might be peak shonen. For the uninitiated, Highschool DxD is a supernatural ecchi harem anime based on a light novel and manga series of the same name, releasing in 2008 with an anime adaptation coming out in 2012. The series would gain a lot of success with its manga at some point, reaching number 2 in the New York Times bestseller list. Now that must have been quite the feat. But yeah, Highschool DxD follows the adventures of Issei Hyodo, as he's reborn as a devil and flung into the supernatural world of angels and devils, working under the command of the great and incredibly iconic Rias and her team, the Occult Club. Sounds simple enough, right? But it owes that simplicity and takes things extra. The anime starts off with our main character, Issei, and the first thing you should know about him is that right from the start, he is a huge pervert, a trait that is fundamental to his character. He's so unapologetically a pervert that he doesn't even try to hide it. Everyone from his classmates to his parents know how much of a pervert he is, and while he does get into trouble for his perverted shenanigans, it usually ends up being a slap on the wrist. So Issei, along with his two friends, who are also pervs, are now second years at Kuo Academy, a school that up until recently was primarily an all-girls school. The three of them got into the school for the specific reason of increasing their chances of finding girlfriends since there'd be less competition. But fortunately, none of the girls have standards low enough to want to even breathe the same air as these boys. Well, that is until one day when some random girl from an entirely different school asks Issei out. And Issei, seeing as he's never gotten any action in his entire life, jumps at the opportunity of finally getting a girlfriend. Things seem to be going great for them, but on the evening of their first date, she turns into a fallen angel and straight up kills him. Okay, gotta cut in real quick and say, if you do plan on watching this, I highly recommend you watch this dubbed. The anime's dub is so damn hilarious, carrying the same energy as an abridged series. I found myself laughing way too hard at several points, wondering if this was the actual dub of the anime. Like in this scene, where his girlfriend reveals herself to be a fallen angel, these are the words that come out of his mind. Mind you, this is supposed to be a tense situation right now.
Breasticles! Those are boobs! I am looking at boobs! My little boy eyes have finally grown into manhood, and she's a super hot chick too! What's that old saying? This is a sight for sore eyes? This is totally a sight for... Wait.
You really have to experience this for yourself. Okay, so she transforms and kills him. Her reason being that he's got something really powerful inside him called a sacred gear, but he doesn't know what that is. As he lays there in a pool of his own blood, all he can think about is how he never got to touch any boobs and how he's going to die a virgin. And as his life slowly fades away, he begins to think about Rias, who he had seen several times before, and thanks to the magic circle he had unknowingly received earlier that day, she's summoned to him and thus, he's reborn as a devil. It doesn't take long until he's assimilated into the world of devils, joining Rias' team. So how this works is that when a high-ranking devil creates a servant, they are given a role based on a chess piece. With Rias being the king, she already has 3 other servants under her prior to Issei joining. There's Akeno, the queen, and the strongest servant. She wields incredible magic, able to rain down thunder on enemies. Her key defining trait is how sadistic she is. Then there's Koneko, the rook, the quiet lolly who spends most of her time eating. She boasts incredible strength and durability. She's the tank of the team. And then there's Kiba, the Bishonen knight. He's the pretty boy that has all the generic girls falling for him. He's like the fast DPS of the team, wielding a magic sword that is also a sacred gear. And finally, Issei is a pawn. Through this chess piece assignment, we get to understand that the person is assigned one piece. However, in some cases they may use up more than one piece. and in Issei's case, he used up all 8 pawn pieces when he was revived. That means there is a lot of potential in Issei, he just needs to unlock it. I have to say, this is a pretty interesting power system. Since characters have properties based on their chess pieces, it means there's a bunch of different functionalities to be applied. This also means that in the case of Issei, he's given the added ability of getting a promotion into any other piece he chooses when he makes it into enemy lines. There's a lot of potential in this, and I hope to see it used a lot more as the story progresses. Still on the topic of Issei, now would be a good time to talk about his other ability, the sacred gear residing in him. He's able to summon this red gauntlet called the Twice Critical, which is said to double his strength. But wait, there's more. His sacred gear is actually that of the legendary Red Dragon Emperor and is said to double his power every 10 seconds, which, theoretically, could give him enough strength to surpass both God and Satan, albeit temporarily. It's called the Boosted Gear, and it's one of the legendary 13 Longinus. So it's got like 3 stacks of names on it, which shows you just how rare it is. This is pure shonen right there. So the first few episodes are mostly just fluff, with the plot not really kicking in until Issei meets this girl. Her name is Asia, a young nun with her own sacred gear called Twilight Healing, which gives her the ability to heal any kind of injury. The two hit it off pretty well, becoming friends as he helps her find a way to the local church, which is a no-no place for devils. So Issei is forced to keep his distance from her. However, that is until one night when he's out running demon errands. He stumbles upon a demon hunting priest and Asia who, plot twist, are actually working for a faction of fallen angels, who is being led by the fallen angel that killed Issei in the first episode. Issei doesn't stand a chance against the priest, but Rias and Ko are able to swoop in and save him just before she is killed a second time. Issei, seeing that Asia is pretty much held against her will by every fallen angel, does what every shonen MC does and sets out to go save her, even though he has to do it alone. But Rias isn't going to let him and has Koneko and Kiba follow along. They storm the bad guys' lairs, and this is where we see Issei show off his pawn properties. Since he's technically behind enemy lines, he's able to promote himself and applies the properties of both the Rook and the Knight on separate occasions. However, he's too late to save Asia as she's had her sacred gear extracted from her, which means death. So he carries her body out of danger, mourning the loss of his friend. The fallen angel from before, who's called Raynell, comes up to finish the job, now with Asia's sacred gear equipped. She mocks him, making fun of how much of a loser he is and how awful their date actually was, which gets him even more infuriated. They fight, but Issei isn't doing too well, and just as he's pushed to the brink, he gets a surge of power which evolves his gauntlet and gives him the edge to take her down. He doesn't have it in him to deliver the final blow, however, as Raynell tries to get some kind of sympathy for him using the face she used when they were dating. And this gets him for some reason. I really don't get why, because they were only together for 3 days, so I wasn't exactly sold on their relationship. But I guess this is to show how good of a person he is deep down beneath all that layer of perversion. Rias, however, has no qualms about terminating her subscription to life. After that, she revives Asia as her bishop, and seeing that the nun has nowhere else to go, sets her up to live in Issei's house. From this setup, you know all the things you think will happen actually happen. And that pretty much concludes the first arc, with the next few episodes just being the crew getting into low stakes scenarios, like in one episode that has Issei and Rias trying to help a woman clad in feudal Japanese armor, obsessed with Japanese culture, win the affection of a guy who dons old Victoria armor. The episode was really damn funny, with the dub taking things to even funnier heights. These few episodes between the two major arcs of the season really helped to flesh out the world and explain a lot more lore to us, all the while being really funny too. The pacing here was just right. But before we get into the next arc, I want to take a bit to clarify a few things here. First off, the name of the anime. You may be wondering, how exactly do you say it? Is it Highschool DxD? Is it Highschool DD? Is it Highschool D&D? Or is it Highschool DD? Well, considering the very lewd nature of the anime, it makes sense to call it Highschool DD. But many just call it Highschool DxD. I personally go with Highschool DD as it has just less syllables. And another thing I need to clarify is where this fits in the whole X timeline. Many may not realize this, but almost any anime with an X in its name is connected in one big timeline. The timeline kicks off with Spy Family, which, depending on if Operation Strix succeeds or fails, breaks into 2 timelines. The bad timeline, which leads into Kiss Sis, and then Rosario Vampire, while the good timeline leads into Servant Service, which is then followed by Highschool DD. However, thanks to the events that happen in Sonic X, with the help of Goku, the two timelines converge, which leads into Hunter x Hunter. You may be wondering why Rosario Vampire is in the same timeline since it has a plus and not an X. Well, a plus is just an X with its axis spun around, implying that it is a spin-off. Now, back to Highschool DxD. The next arc kicks off with Rias teleporting into Issei's room in the middle of the night and demands his virginity. So unsurprisingly enough, the super pervert is hesitant to do this. Not because he doesn't want to, but because it's all happening so fast and his brain is still processing stuff. But he's a bit too late as another demon teleports into his room. This is Grafia, and she serves as the servant to Rias' older brother, Sir Zex, as he's better known as Lucifer. Grafia has come to Rias to discuss the matter of her engagement. That's right, she's being put in an arranged marriage in order to strengthen the pure-blooded demon bloodline, and she's been engaged to this very charming individual, Riser Phoenix, who belongs to one of the three noble demon houses, and he's ready to claim his bride. But Rias doesn't want that. She wants to be able to choose who she wants to be with, she wants to have her freedom. But Riser is like, screw that, you belong to me. So in an attempt to fight for her freedom, she challenges him to a rating game. Now, a rating game is basically an official match between two demons and their servants where they use chess tactics and all that stuff to defeat their opponents. And if tactics don't work, you just beat the shit out of them. Riser accepts the challenge, mocks Rias' team, and just to flex, summons his own servants who are also his harem. And this pisses Issei off, because, in case you couldn't tell by now, Issei's big goal is to become a high-ranking demon so that he can get a harem of his own. He can't stand Riser because he's like the bad version of the person he wants to be, and oh, I guess he doesn't want Rias to be part of his harem too, but it's mostly the first thing. The match is in 10 days, and they use those 10 days to train and prepare. This is where Issei learns how to better use his boosted gear as well as a bit of magic, developing a new technique, which we'll find out later. This is also where we learn the effects things like crosses and holy waters have on devils, as well as the three-way war between the angels, devils, and fallen angels. And later that night, Issei and Rias are able to have a one-on-one where Rias talks about how woes having a partner being decided for her and how her whole life she's never been seen as Rias but the daughter of the Grammary House. And Issei says he doesn't care about all that stuff. He likes her for who she is. And this is the moment she begins to fall for him, declaring she will win the fight against Riser. Up until this point, I haven't really been sold on Rias as a character. Everything I know about her I know through people's opinions of her. They hype her up, calling her the Princess of Ruin who's strong enough to take out fallen angels on her own. In fact, she does so, off screen however, but I'm yet to actively see any big feats from her. So far she's just been the cool, calculating, mysterious type, and now that we do get to see her in action, she becomes the damsel in distress. Where was all that moxie she's said to have all this time? Even her servants have had a lot more time to show off their abilities, and just how strong they are, compared to Rias who we've only seen stand and be menacing. Maybe my opinion of her will change as the story goes on, but for now, I'm not sold. So the day of the rating game finally comes, and the Grammary team is ready to take Riser and his servants down, despite being outnumbered. Now this is where Highschool DxD's shonen-iness really comes alive. They start off with tactics and all that, but frankly, these were all pretty shallow. The first fight we're treated to is Issei and Koneko versus 3 of Riser's pawns and a rook. Koneko takes on the rook, so it's a rook versus rook fight, while Issei handles the 3 pawns. He's doing pretty well holding off the pawns considering a few episodes ago, one of them was able to one-shot him. This is where he finally reveals the new move he's been working on during his training arc. With a snap of his fingers, every girl he's touched has her clothes completely shredded and blown away. He calls this the dress break. It's a hilarious move and very effective too, but this just makes him even more repulsive to every other girl around him, especially Koneko. They do take their W's and head to the next area. Kiba is also able to 1v3 some other servants too. The team is doing pretty well against the enemies until Koneko gets blown up by Riser's queen. She doesn't die though and is instead retired from the match. Akeno steps in to take on the enemy queen while Kiba and Issei get jumped by the enemy's remaining forces. Kiba faces off an enemy who wields a blade of fire and breaks his own sacred gear, but he summons his new sword instantly. Turns out, in a classic shonen moment, where the ability we thought was the ability wasn't actually the ability, but rather a different ability. His real ability is called Unlimited Blades Works. Oh, sorry, wrong anime. His real ability is called Sword Birth, able to summon as many swords as he needs to. He and Issei team up to take out the rest of the enemies, with Issei using his boosted gear to amplify Kiber's powers and summon a bunch of swords to take them all down in one go. On the other side of things, Akeno is able to actually beat Riser's queen, but she pulls out a full restore and turns the tables on Akeno, taking her out of the game, but doesn't stop there as she goes after Kiba too. She's been on a killing spree. Meanwhile, Rias along with Asia are facing Riser and she's getting pushed back. No matter what amount of damage he dishes out, he's able to instantly regenerate. You know, being a phoenix and all. Issei is able to join the fight but takes big damage from protecting Asia, but he can still go on. Or so we think. All that boosting he's been doing all this time is finally taking a toll on his body, but that still won't keep him down. However, Riser comes to put him out personally, and despite all that wailing, he's still not going down. This is it. This is when Issei goes full shonen and beats his ass, right? Unfortunately, no. Rhea steps in and forfeits right there. She gave up to protect Issei. But I guess they didn't really stand a chance, even though the anime did pull a full cheap tactics. But then again, they're devils, so those aren't exactly cheap tactics. So the game is over when Rias officially becomes Riser's fiancé. Issei passes out and is visited by the dragon within him, the Red Emperor Drake. He tells Issei to get his shit together because soon the White One will show up and they are destined to do battle. And just before he gets more answers, he wakes up and is immediately visited by Graphia. She is there on command of Sir Zex and hands him a magic circle that will teleport him straight to the engagement party. Sir Zex wants to give Issei a chance to fight Riser one-on-one and win Reyes back. And as you expect, he takes up the offer and storms the party. This infuriates Riser just as he's about to have Issei forcefully thrown out. The ruler of the underworld, Sir Zex himself, shows up and endorses the two's rematch. The battle begins and Issei doesn't waste any time showing off his new transformation. Balance breaker, boosted gear, scale mail. And it's every bit as cool as it looks. There is a drawback though. Prior to storming the party, he made a deal with the Red Dragon, sacrificing his left arm for more power. But this sacrifice can only let him use the form for 10 seconds, and he plans to make use of all those seconds. It's not enough though, as Issei is still barely keeping up with Riser, but this changes after landing his first blow, which does a lot more damage than it should have. That's because in his hands holds a cross, which is super effective to devils. It should be hurting Issei too, but remember, his left arm now belongs to the dragon, so it doesn't affect him at all. And just as he's about to deliver the final blow, he runs out of time. The armor goes off, but he's not done yet, as he still has one more trick up his sleeve. He pulls out the holy water he got from Asia, and using his gear's ability to amplify others' powers, he amplifies the power of the holy water, which damages Riser so bad he can't regenerate from it. This gives Issei the opportunity to put all his power into one final attack and deliver the final blow, taking down Riser. I have to say, I really liked this fight. I was expecting a lot more shonen power clashing, but ended up seeing a fight that was pretty unique and took advantage of the fact that Riser looked down on Issei, and now Issei had other things in his arsenal to turn the fight in his favor. And it didn't come out of nowhere because it makes sense for Issei to get access to these things since he now lives with Asia, a former nun. If this fight is setting the standard of how fights are going to be in the series moving forward, then I can't wait to see how much more creative the fights can get. So Issei wins the fight, and he wins the girl. They ride off on a griffin where Issei declares how, no matter what happens, he'll always come to save her, and she's so moved by this she kisses him right there, that being both of them's first kiss. But that's not all, she's also moving in with him, just like that. And his parents are cool with it too, somehow. So now Issei has two girls, who are both interested in, by the way, living with him. And that's the end of the first season of Highschool DxD. I had a lot more fun watching it than I thought. Let me confess, I initially went into this ready to rip the anime apart, but as it went on, everything just grew on me. From the plot to the setting and the characters, except Rias. For a first season, it does a good job setting everything up, leaving a lot open for the next season. My only gripes with it all would be, for an anime from 2012, it looks a bit rough. The art looks off in some cases and the animation isn't anything to write home about. It has its moments, but most of the time isn't all that impressive and is just really passable. Alright, I think it's about time I talked about the elephant in the room. Surprisingly enough, the fan service didn't get in the way of the anime and was somehow able to play into the whole shtick it had going for it. The anime didn't come to a screeching halt when fan service came on. The only time it did spend time oogling was when Issei himself was. This was definitely one of the better uses of fan service in an anime and was much better executed compared to something like Fire Force or Fairy Tail. I personally am not a fan of fan service, but oddly enough didn't find myself cringing and rolling my eyes anytime it came up. I guess you could say it was done pretty tastefully. God, I sound like such a degenerate right now. But yeah, I can see how it can put a bunch of people off considering the girls of the anime are very much in high school. I'm not going to try to defend or criticize this aspect of it because it's not the first to do so. All I can say is that if it's for you, it's for you, and if it's not, it's not. But yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about Highschool DxD in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like. 50 likes and I'll cover the second season. As always, this has been your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.